going on, Devils fans? Happy Monday here, July 7th, 2025. Hope you guys had a fantastic Canada Day. If you guys just happen to be from Canada listening to the podcast, which I do appreciate, but also here in the United States, I hope you had a good and safe and happy 4th of July. Just want to quickly send my thoughts and prayers to people who were, obviously who were dealing with the issues that were going on in Jersey City over the 4th of July weekend. I really hope that everybody's okay, safe, all that. Just wanted to get that out of the way. But nonetheless, what's going on, Devils fans? It is always your host, your best friend, your confidant, your number one source, Neil Villapiano, and welcome to another edition of the Devil's State of Mind podcast, a free agency frenzy edition of the podcast, and your number one place to get everything you need to know about your somewhat new look New Jersey Devils. And as always, thank you guys again for taking time out of your day to check this episode out. And I do hope you are having a fantastic day wherever you are chiming in, whether here on YouTube or wherever you're listening, Apple, Spotify, all that good stuff. But nonetheless, thank you guys. Shout out really quickly, as always, to our sponsors over at DraftKings Sportsbook. Make sure when you sign up for DraftKings you bet $5, just $5 when you sign up with our promo code THP, and you get $200 instantly in risk-free bets. $200. That is a deal that you do not want to pass up on. So again, when you sign up with DraftKings, use our promo code THP at the beginning. Bet $5 on your first bet, get $200 instantly in risk-free bets. And shout out as always to DraftKings Sportsbook. Devils fans, got a really, really good guest for you today. For a lot of you, especially on Instagram, you know him pretty well. Does a great job with his page, mainly talking about the New Jersey Devils. He used to also talk a lot of NHL news in general, but he focuses mainly on the New Jersey Devils now, and I'm really excited to get his thoughts on the Devils' move so far in this free agency. So it's with great pleasure to welcome on my good friend, Chips. What's going on, Chips? Thank you so much for coming on the podcast, man. Do appreciate it.
Thank you. What's up, Neil? I'm happy. I'm happy that you messaged me to be on it, bro. I'm excited.
And for those of you that don't know, Chips has also been on a couple of my Instagram lives over the years. Good, he has a great breakdown of things, and I felt, as I was saying to him before we jumped on, that it's about time we get him on the podcast in season 6 of my podcast at this point. So,
Yeah.
nonetheless, let's kind of jump right into the moves that the Devils made. Little less than a week ago. Tomorrow will make it a week. But the Devils were a little busy in the first day of free agency, which comes as no surprise. And the first move they made was re-signing Jake Allen to a 5-year contract at $9 million in total. And he'll only be making somewhere around a little less than $2 million per year over those 5 years. But it ends up being $9 million in total. So, Chips, right off the bat, your thoughts on Tom Fitzgerald going to work and bringing back Jake Allen to back up Jacob Markstrom for the foreseeable future?
Um, I was really surprised that they were going to bring him back. Like I know he was one of the best backup goalies last season and everything. So to have a tandem of him and Markstrom, and what we saw last season was really good for the Devils. I was a little bit surprised that they brought him back though, just because of the small sample size that Nico Dawes had. I know it was only 6 games, but in the 6 games that he played, his stats and how he played looked like he was an NHL caliber goalie, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah.
And having him signed to the one-way contract and everything for this upcoming season, I just thought, he was just going. I thought the plan was just for him to be the backup goalie, but I think for the Devils, because Jake Allen's always been a good goalie. I just think, maybe they didn't expect that of him. And the Devils really haven't had a good goaltending tandem in a while. Like it didn't work with Schneider, Blackwood, Vanacek had worked for 1 year, Schmidt. So to get what they had and to, how do I say it? What's the word I'm looking for? Veteran goalies.
Yep.
Veteran goalies. To get 2 veteran goalies, 2 guys that have won. I think that's the right move. I was a little bit surprised that it was for 5 years though,
Hmm.
and just them bringing it back or bringing him back in general. But at the same time, I'm really not too surprised, just because of how good the goaltending tandem was. But for 5 years, that's a lot. But also for 1.8 million, like we gotta remember too, the Devils I think were only paying Jake Allen 1.9 million when they
Yep.
got him from Montreal, so they're paying him less now. But I'm just curious of what they're going to do with Nico Dawes at this point. Because one of the reasons why Jake Allen wanted to leave Montreal was because he didn't want to be a part of like a three goalie rotation and everything like
Hmm.
that. And if you keep Dawes, it's going to be the same thing. I know Allen was also fighting for a contract though at the time, and he already got his probably his final contract in the NHL. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, I'm just curious of what they're going to do with Nico Dawes now, because I think the plan was for him to be the backup, but now since they saw what Allen did with Markstrom, I'm just curious to see what they're going to do there.
Yeah, I agree with you that it was very surprising that the Devils were able to get a deal done because it seemed like it, especially over the coming weeks leading up to free agency, that he was leaning more towards testing the market. It clearly seemed like he wanted $9 million in total and whatever deal he was going to get. It's possible that other teams would have given him more, especially some of the goalie needy teams like maybe the Philadelphia Flyers at the time, or even the Edmonton Oilers, who were certainly looking to upgrade the goaltending position. But when the Devils got it done, I think everybody's reaction was the same 5 years, and you're like, wow, that's a lot. That's a lot of term. But then you realize that you're only paying him 9 million over those 5 years, so you're not really paying all that much to keep a very solid veteran backup goaltender on your team. And Jake Allen even made it clear that he's going to retire as a Devil. That's the way he put it when he spoke to the media after he signed. And you bring up a good point with Nico Dawes. I'd written an article for Pucks and Pitchforks about a month ago saying that I felt confident that Nico Dawes could be the backup. He's played over 50 games now in the NHL, has had a couple of really big moments in his career already, including the Stadium Series game where he set a new record for most saves in a Stadium Series outdoor game in NHL history. And obviously the Devils feel a bit more confident going with Jake Allen. I don't think it means the end of Nico Dawes because I think there is some flexibility there with the Jake Allen deal. But I do agree with you. It'll be very interesting to see what happens moving forward. I'd be curious about what Nico Dawes' feelings about the situation is.
Yeah.
Um, it's definitely an unfortunate one, but also at the same time, look, knock on wood, God forbid, we need a goaltender to come in, whether it's either Allen or Markstrom that get hurt at some point, like what happened last year. You do have a guy in Dawes who has a lot of experience that can come in, and that the Devils feel confident in when he's in net. And we saw that a bunch this past year when he came in for a couple of games in relief of Jacob Markstrom. So yeah, that was kind of the first. That was a surprising move, but I think for a lot of people, it's still a fairly positive move because you do keep Jake Allen around, and now the goaltending again is set for next year, and we'll see what happens moving forward if and when the Jacob Markstrom contract extension talks start to really begin because he will be an unrestricted free agent at the end of this upcoming season, and I'm sure that'll be further down the line, but let's shift over to the Devils' first move in terms of bringing new guys in, and that was signing Connor Brown, the former Edmonton Oilers forward, to a contract of 4 years at $12 million in total. So he'll have an AAV of $3 million. So the Devils bring in a guy who the year before, he started the year after coming off of an injury and had a really, really strong year in Edmonton, helped them reach the Stanley Cup Finals for the second year in a row. And he's truly a very, very solid bottom six player who could definitely provide some more scoring depth, which again, Chips, you and I both know is something the Devils lacked a lot last year. So, the Devils come out with a move that I know from the AAV perspective, some people are going to wince at a little bit, but that is how free agency goes. But your overall thoughts on the Devils bringing in Connor Brown to New Jersey?
Um. Well, like what you said, I mean, the whole bottom six needed to be fixed. And we knew they were going to go after players like that with everyone leaving and whatever. Like Tatar left before free agency even started.
Right.
Um, Holler was traded. We already, I think we had an idea that like Bastion, Lazar wouldn't have been brought back and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I like Connor Brown as a player. I think 3 million and 4 years I think is too much as well, but I think still 3 million might be a little bit high. Maybe that's what he's worth. But with the limited amount of cap space that the Devils had, um, and still have, because they only have 6 million left, still got to
Yeah.
sign Luke Hughes, and I still think they need another depth piece.
Hmm.
Even signing, other players and bringing players over from overseas and whatever it is. I like Connor Brown as a player, and he's been to the Stanley Cup final back-to-back years. He's been a 20-goal scorer before. He's been on winning teams before. I just think, though, in a bottom six role with Sheldon Keefe's system, is he going to put up 20 goals again in the bottom six? What's his role really going to be like? And who's he really going to be with? I mean, we all thought Stefan Nason was going to be in the bottom six last year, and he made his way
Right.
to the top six, and then he turned out to having his best season in his career, scoring 22 goals and
Hmm.
having about like 40 points and everything like that. So hopefully I'm wrong about this whole Connor Brown, like this whole Connor Brown signing and everything. I just like he's made like Tom Fitzgerald's made better moves, better signings.
Hmm.
I'm not mad at it. I just think it's a little bit too much though, year wise and even dollar wise. Even though free agency, I will say free agency, it's always an overpay. It's always going to be
Right.
an overpay, and there wasn't a whole lot of names, especially bigger names. I mean, there weren't, in my opinion, I felt they weren't going to go for any bigger names, even though their names always going to be out there. Like
Sure.
Ehlers, Besser, Marchand, um, Reinhardt. Like these guys all re-signed, or you know, like Ehlers going wherever. It was an overpay. It's always going to
Carolina.
be
Yeah.
overpay, you know. But they they needed depth pieces, and
Yeah.
to get one for 4 years. I mean, that's to be in your system for 4 years, grow with these guys. You know, that's some. I like that. I like that, but I
Yeah.
just think the dollar amount still is a might be a little bit too high.
I think that's a fair assessment overall. I mean, again, like we were just mentioning several times, when you dive into free agency, a lot of the time you're going to end up having to overpay to really get some guys in. Even if
Mhm.
you are a good team, you're going to want it. You're going to have to do that. And Tom Fitzgerald knew that he was going to have to reshape the bottom six. And I do agree with you that I don't think they're done. They should be done yet. It'll be curious to see what other moves they make at some point with that, but I think bringing in Connor Brown was necessary, and I think he will be able to fit in pretty well in Keith's system. And we'll see. So that was kind of the first move that the Devils made, and then the next one that they made, which nobody really talked about in terms of maybe like a fit, but it ends up being honestly a pretty solid deal, and that is bringing Evgeny Dadonov to the New Jersey Devils on a 1 year contract at $1 million. Now, at face value, it's $1 million, but according to some of the things I've seen, there are incentives where it could go up to maybe 1.75, closer to $2 million if certain things happen for him personally, but also help contribute to the team. And Chips, I have to be honest with you, signing a guy who put up 20 goals last year and 50 points uh, for $1 million is pretty good business when, again, you're trying to retool and revamp the bottom six and you're bringing in a really solid veteran and also a guy who, quite frankly, is going to probably take your boy Arseny Gritziuk under his wing once he officially comes and starts playing for New Jersey.
Yeah. Like I don't honestly, I can't see how any Devils fan can hate this signing. This is this is a really good signing. I mean, you look at they signed him for 1 million. That's what it's looking like right now, $1 million. I'm
Mm-hmm.
just saying, like he had 20 goals, however many assists last year. You look at a guy like Gustav Nyquist, who had I think 11 goals and 29 points. He got 3.25 million from the Winnipeg
Yeah.
Jets, and you get him for 1 million, not just for depth scoring and the player that he is. Like he's had multiple 20 goal seasons in his career. Um, and not even just being a goal scorer and being a depth scorer for only $1 million, but this helps out a guy like Arseny Gritsuk a lot because Gritsuk, no, he doesn't know any English. He
No.
knows absolutely no English, and he's coming over from Russia to North America the first time, well that I know of at least. Uh,
Hmm.
and to get a guy like Dadonov, who can probably play on his wing as well, and I think that could be an actual fit because they're both goal scorers. Um, I think that's pro- probably one of the better things that you can do in free agency is get a guy like Dadonov, instead of having to go out and trying to get a guy like Vladimir Tarasenko or something like that or
Sure.
whatever. If you can get a guy like Dadonov who had 20 goals for a
Yeah.
million dollars, not even just for Gritsuk's sake, but to provide depth scoring when the team needed it so much last season,
Hmm.
this is one of the best things that Tom Fitzgerald has done at the trade deadline and this summer. It's one of the best things he's done for this.
It's it, Yeah, for sure. And I think that, Dadnow brings a lot of experience. He's been in the league for a long time now. And again, 20 goals last year, and we're only paying him $1 million, at least in the cap hit. I think that's, again, really good business by Tom Fitzgerald, who's slowly starting to, I guess you say, get back in the good graces of fans, because I know that there's a lot of, you know, discontent with him. I mean, I've expressed being a huge supporter of his, but obviously my opinion's kind of changing with how some of the things have gone. But again, you're adding to you're retooling that bottom six, and you're bringing in a guy like Dadonov. I think that works out really really well, and definitely creates that depth, which is important. So those were the two big free agent moves of new guys that were coming in. Kind of going in order of the moves that the Devils made over the couple of days, and then not too long after, I think it was a day or two later, the Devils made what I would consider to be somewhat of an interesting move, a 1-for-1 with the San Jose Sharks, as they traded Shane Bowers to the San Jose Sharks for Thomas Bordello. Bordello, for some Devils fans, you'll recognize him because he was teammates with both Luke Hughes and also Ethan Edwards at the University of Michigan. And he's only 23 years of age. He was picked I think he was picked in the second round by San Jose a couple of years ago. He is an RFA currently. He did not elect for arbitration, but I'm curious to see when. I'm sure at some point the Devils will sign him to what I assume to be a 1-year deal. Um, it's kind of interesting with him because he's still a young player with a decent amount of potential, but it looked like he was just never going to get into the Sharks full time roster. Um, I know some people look at this more as a depth piece, but kind of curious to get your thoughts on this if you have any with this kind of move.
Honestly, I don't even know who this guy is. I will, I will, I will say this though, because I've seen a lot of people talk about him. They've talked about him a lot. And I still don't know who he is. But I will say, no, he had people were saying he had a lot of potential, and he's still young as well. So there's still room for him to grow and everything like that. And
Mm-hmm.
with the potential that he's had, um, and what people have been expecting, if he starts off, I will say this: if he starts off with Utica is going to be a damn fun team to watch next year.
Mm-hmm.
All the Devils, well, majority, like 80% of the prospects that people know of are going to be
Yeah.
playing for Utica next year. So when you have him like go on a line with say like Lenny Hamanaho as an example, if he's
Mm-hmm.
top line or whatever it is, um, you know, then we can maybe see something out of him there. I think it's like a Nolan Foote situation.
Sure.
Um, a guy that can maybe play like 5 NHL games, get a crack in the
Mm.
lineup, but be that top guy for Utica.
Yeah. I see
But
what you're
that's what I
saying.
would just think when I hear his name and what people have been telling me.
Yeah.
I've never watched him before or
Yeah.
anything like that.
Fair enough. And I mean, look, Shea Bowers didn't do much in his short time in New Jersey. Didn't put up a lot of numbers in Utica either. I think he put up maybe 15 overall last season for the Comets. So, yeah, I mean, again, this is a young kid that can come in and play in the AHL, probably play top 6 minutes, and certainly prove himself, and maybe get an opportunity to maybe get some minutes in the NHL at some point. And again, he's still fairly young, as we've mentioned several times. So there's still that potential there. So that was a I don't want to say it was a head scratching move, but it was just kind of a move that the Devils made that, now we bring in a guy like Bordello to the team. We create a little bit more depth in our forward group in terms of, even just Utica. So that was that. Now, the next move is bringing back somebody the Devils acquired at the trade deadline this past year. And it's not a surprise the Devils brought him back, considering that we heard a lot of reports about him. And that is talking about Cody Glass. And I know that a lot of the Devils fan base, or at least a portion of it, is thrilled that Cody Glass has returned to the Garden State. He signs a 2-year contract at $2.5 million AAV for this year and next year. And look, Cody Glass came in, and I remember him being drafted as the first round pick ever of the Vegas Golden Knights back in 2017. And quite frankly, to be blunt, he ended up being a bust. I mean, that's just being fair, just being honest. And he's bounced around for a couple teams, but he comes to New Jersey. He made a pretty decent impact right away through the first 7 or 8 games, but then kind of tabled off because, again, he is more of a bottom six guy, dealt with an injury. He'll always have that funny moment of Markstrom slashing him by accident. But nonetheless, the Devils at least bring back some of their bottom six by bringing in Cody Glass and by bringing back Cody Glass, and we'll see if he ends up being either the team's 3C or 4C, depending on certain things. But Chips, do you like them bringing back Cody Glass? Because I think the other interesting thing is that you ended up paying him what his qualifying offer was going to be, at least for this year, which was $2.5 million. And the Devils went from they weren't going to give him his qualifying offer to kind of going back on that, but then signing him to a 2-year deal.
Yeah, I always wanted them to bring him back. Anything under $3 million. And again, I'm at 2.5. Um, and there was reports saying that they were just going to let him go to free agency and try to sign him there, like what they did with. Um, oh, I thought I froze.
No,
like what
you're
they
good. You're good.
like what they did with McLeod and Bastion a couple years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And try to re-sign him there. Um, then when Elliot Freeman made the report saying like, oh yeah, there's a lot of teams interested, so they're gonna give him that qualifying offer. Um, I was hyped. I was excited about it. I wish it. I was hoping it wasn't a 1-year deal because I like Cody Glass as a player, and I can because when they traded for him, he wasn't. He was more of a defensive type of player.
Right.
He came to the Devils. He had a good stretch of offensive numbers and everything like that. And then when the playoffs happened, people were hating on him because he had 0 points in 5 games at the time.
Mm-hmm.
That's not his role. His role
Right.
really put up numbers. It's to be a defensive forward, which is
Mm-hmm.
what Pittsburgh really turned him into be, and that's what the Devils expected that they were going to get out of him.
Sure.
Um, Not everybody needs to score in the bottom six. Not everybody needs to be a depth scorer. And they've added depth scorers, in free agency and everything like that. But
Mm-hmm.
to get they've been lacking centers ever since they traded Holla as well. And even when they had Holla, they've still been saying, yeah, we might need to go get another center at the deadline. And that's what they did with Cody Glass.
Right.
Um, and Glass also said that he wants to still be with the team. Like he wanted to be around, So to have a guy say that, and you know, to me, I liked what I saw in Cody Glass, especially in the regular season. And for a guy to say, "Yeah, I want to be back with his team and everything like that," yeah, I would love to try to re-sign a guy like that and still have him back in the team, especially for $2.5 million. With the cap going to keep going up and
Yeah.
whatever. And they've been lacking centers as well. So
Mm-hmm.
to get him back, and if he's going to be your fourth line center, and who really cares? You know what I mean?
Right.
Um, I'm totally fine with that. I think that was a good signing. 5 million, 2.5 for 2 years.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good signing. I'm fine with that though.
I am as well. And, like again, he was a pleasant surprise. I don't know if the Devils evaluators felt that he could make that kind of contribution. That he did. I think it probably surprised them a little bit too. But I think it says a lot when you have guys like Glass, who came in at the deadline. You have Jake Allen, who came in at the trade deadline the year before, and talking about wanting to be here, wanting to be in New Jersey, wanting to be with this team. We think about, we go back a couple of years and we think about, Dougie Hamilton, who we'll get into in a little bit. He was kind of like that first outsider that truly chose New Jersey as his place he wanted to be. And I think it means something because you want to be, when you're contending for a cup, you want to be a place where people want to go. You want to be in a position like Florida or Vegas or Tampa to an extent, or those teams. You want to be there where guys are willing to take less to stay there because they want to be a part of that team.
Just like Jake Allen, he said he wanted to resign with the Devils, and
Exactly.
then so just
Yeah.
like
And that's where it comes down to. So yeah, bringing back Cody Glass, he comes back on a 2-year deal, so he'll be around for the next couple of years. He'll definitely help out that bottom six, and I think that's going to be good for him because he'll be in that role. That's going to be the role that he should have been in when the Devils first got him, but obviously with injuries and such, things changed. But that's the role he's going to be in, and that was kind of the moves that the Devils made, or at least so far have made in free agency. Now there are going to potentially be other moves, so we will certainly bring them up when they come about at some point. But the next thing I wanted to talk to you really quickly about is Luke Hughes. You mentioned it before. Devils have just over $6 million in cap space. I don't believe that the Devils are going to try to get Luke to sign at a 6-year per year $1 million contract, even if it's short term. I believe that they want to give him that 7 or 8 by 8 that a lot of teams end up giving guys like that, and even that Tom Fitzgerald has done in the past. And again, I'll just reiterate this for everybody: Luke Hughes, because of certain, because he hasn't played a full 3 years in the league, he cannot be offer sheeted. So there's no chance that he ends up being offer sheeted and the Devils don't keep him. He's going to be here. But I wanted to get your thoughts on what you want to see in terms of a contract for Luke Hughes moving forward.
um well, okay, so they don't have the money for it. Well, we'll get into it when we talk about Hamilton and everything.
Sure.
But I think he's probably going to get 8 years, 7.5, and I think anything under 8 is going to be a steal. But anywhere from 7.5 to 8 is
Mm-hmm.
what I really think. He's been like his first year. I'm not going to count the 2022-23 season. He played 2 games.
Mm-hmm.
But last season, well, the 2023-24 season, played a full year about. Um, he was an offensive threat. The
Yeah.
problem was really his defense wasn't the greatest, and he
Right.
was constantly turning pucks over and everything like that. But it was his first year. This season, well, last season now, 24-25, the offensive numbers were still there. Like he was still being a offensive threat,
Mm-hmm.
but his defensive game also got better. It's still not great, but it got better.
Mm-hmm.
So he's been improving. Um, I look at something like what Brock Faber got in Minnesota. What did he get? He got 8 times 8, right? Or eight,
Mm-hmm.
eight, 8.5.
I think it was yeah. If I have that correct.
So maybe because Jack Hughes is here or whatever, he'll take a discount. I have no idea. Um, but like knowing what they got Jesper Bratt signed for and
Yep.
Jack Hughes signed for, maybe he takes 7.5 or 8 or whatever it is. I can't. I can't see going any higher than 8 in my opinion though.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think that that's the overall consensus that that's going to end up being the deal, which then brings up that question of like, okay, so if we're going to go to 7.5, 8, where is the next $1.5 million to $2 million? Where's that coming from? Because that's where situation is, and that brings up guys like Andre Palat. Although it seems like at this point that maybe there isn't a market for Palat, which is kind of frustrating, but at the same time, I get it. But the other guy that was brought up, that has been brought up in trade talks over the last couple of days, really, is Dougie Hamilton. Now, Elliot Friedman today on his 32 Thoughts podcast, he said about the Devils, the next biggest question for the Devils is Dougie Hamilton. He went from a full no move clause to a partial no trade. I'm just curious to see what happens. They paid his bonus on July 1st. From some sources that I have personally that I won't bring I'm not allowed to bring up in terms of names. They spoke to Dougie Hamilton's agent and said that there really hasn't been any sort of talk between the Devils and Dougie about him getting moved. I think that the Devils are probably looking at the market to see what they could potentially get, but I don't think it's their full on goal to move Hamilton. And I put out a tweet thread on Twitter talking about Dougie Hamilton and saying that the only way I could see the Devils moving Dougie is if you're getting impact assets coming back. Like I don't think you could just use Dougie as a cap dump. But then you're keeping Andre Palat. I think that that's kind of ridiculous if you ask me. I give credit to Stan Fischler, the Maven. He actually responded to that tweet and said, um, with all due respect, Dougie Hamilton has not always been the player that Devils fans hope for. And I can understand what he was saying by that with some of the injuries that Dougie's been dealing with over the last couple of years. And, but that again, that's the price you pay for free agency, right? We just talked about that. And the Devils got him in free agency a year after COVID. So that's going to happen. But yeah, now Dougie Hamilton looks like he could be in play to be moved. But I want to get your thoughts, Chips, on the latest Dougie Hamilton rumors that we've been hearing.
Okay, so I feel like it was always a possibility ever since, you know, the no movement clause was moved into a 10-team no trade. Because that's when everybody, because the bonus is well paid and everything, and then everybody was speculating that, like you said, and Elliot Freeman and whatnot. And this is what I was saying, like I was going to talk about with, like during the Luke Hughes contract,
Yeah,
um, because they need to clear cap because 6 million, like you could be over the cap a little bit now, but once the season starts, you can't be over the cap.
right.
Um, unless they put someone on LTIR, if it's Kovacevic, which I highly doubt, they're saying that Kovacevic is not going to be ready for the season. So maybe you want to keep a guy like Dougie Hamilton, and maybe you want to keep guys like Seamus Casey and Simone Nemec because you don't know how long Kovacevic is going to be out for.
Right.
Uh, and then down the line, if Kovacevic is ready, then you would trade one of Casey or Nemec. But I just think Hamilton's cap is too high. Um,
Mm-hmm.
if they were to move somebody for cap space, I and if they can't move Palat, I think it might just be Mercer, and
Mm.
then use that to get the Luke Hughes contract, and then use the extra money for depth or whatever it is. I don't know what his plan is.
Yeah.
Um, the thing though with Hamilton is he's still a really good. He's one of the best defensemen on the power play. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
now his power play numbers, could be better, but
Mm-hmm.
analytically he's still like the shot qualities he has and how he's moving the puck on the power play. It's one of the best in the league.
Mm-hmm.
The thing though is like we were saying, they got to move Cap somehow. Um, and the whole thing was in the offseason was who are they going to move on the right side because you have all these righties, you have all these defensemen in the system, and now
Sure.
there's a report that Salayev could be coming to the NHL as early as next year.
Mm-hmm.
So I think right now Hamilton's just going to stay on the team
Yeah.
because of the Kovacevic injury, and maybe they value Dougie Hamilton so high to where like okay, even though he has a high cap hit, he's still a top right D in the league in our eyes, and we still want to get a really good return for him.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the market just isn't there, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but they still got to move Cap somehow. The thing with Palat, like you said, I don't think anyone wants Palat. I think they are trying to look for a trade now, though, because they couldn't trade him till July 1st because of his 10-team contract.
Right.
Um, so I think they're looking for a trade now, and if they can't get a trade now, then maybe they just go through the second buyout window, whenever that is, or the next buyout
Hmm.
window. Maybe just buy him out there because they still need to clear cap. Maybe they don't want to move
Right.
Mercer. And Mercer, listen, Mercer he's still a 20 goal scorer. He had 19 goals, but the previous 2-3 years he's been a 20 goal scorer. So I'm
Hmm.
rounding it up and saying he's been a consistent 20 goal scorer. Now he only had like 33, 36 points last season, but he's one of the only guys that can stay healthy on the team too,
Yep.
and in the whole
Well, hasn't
league.
missed a game in his career.
Yeah. So, and the problem with Hamilton as well, he's since he's joined the Devils, it's been 4 seasons and he's only played in a full 82 game season once, and that was his best season of his career. He had 73 points. It was broke Scott Stevens' record for I think the most goals in Devils history. So
Hmm.
when Hamilton's healthy, he's damn good. The problem is he can't stay healthy. That's the whole
Doesn't that sound
problem.
like our entire team at this point? Like when we're on
Yeah.
the ice, we're doing great, but when anyone's out, that's just that's how it goes.
The only one's Bratton Mercer. That's it. That's
Yeah,
it.
I think I think Chips, you bring up a lot of good points. I think the big thing, I do agree that I don't think Hamilton ends up getting moved. I think that they value him too much. Also, I know this sounds kind of ridiculous, but we do have to remember that Dougie Hamilton chose the Devils back in free agency several years ago, and he didn't have to. He could
Yeah.
have stayed in Carolina. He could have gone somewhere else. Um, but he chose to come here, and he's been a part of this process overall, which I think is important for, which is important. But I also understand that if you're Tom Fitzgerald, you may have to make some moves that might shake up the locker room.
Mm,
And moving a guy like Dougie, especially if you're getting players of value back for him, that will shake up the locker room because it will create some question marks and wondering, what is the overall plan here moving forward. But I do agree that they're going to have to move some cap. How they do that, we will only have to wait and see. I think that's the big thing here. But I think the bottom line with Dougie is that I don't think he's going to get moved. I think Chips and I both agree, and I think he'll be here moving forward. He does, including this year. He has 3 years left on his contract at a $9 million cap hit, which I understand again why people would want to see him move because $9 million is a lot of money, even in this economy. And but I just don't see it happening. And you're losing a puck handling defenseman. And I don't know if I have the fullest confidence that they have one other than Luke Hughes. Maybe it could be Nemec. Maybe it could be Casey. We'll see. But it's something we will definitely we will keep our eye on moving forward. Now, news dropped today, and it's not player news. It's not management news. It's not even Woo Crew news.
mm,
No, it is about the Devils broadcast. We got a stunner today, a absolute stunner from a New York Post article. That's where most people first saw the news, and then the Devils dropped this right here as Don LaGreca, the one of the co-hosts of the Michael K show, now is the Don and Han show on ESPN Radio, is now the new play-by-play voice of the New Jersey Devils on MSG, replacing, surprisingly, Bill Spalding after 3 years. Now, I'll quickly, and Chips knows Don very well being in this area. I've heard Don many times. Don LaGreca is very well known for, his overreactions, especially on, the Michael K show. But what people actually don't know is that he has a lot of play-by-play experience. He's been the Rangers radio play-by-play voice for I think over more than a decade. I think I don't know for how long specifically, but he does have a lot of experience. And fun fact, he was a finalist for the play-by-play voice for the Devils 3 years ago before they gave it to Bill Spalding. So I think that shows you again how high MSG feels about it. I don't know if this was a Devils decision. It's probably not. It was probably more of an MSG decision, but it came as a surprise. It came as a shock. And Bill Spalding put out a really nice, post about it. Um, and a lot of people are, at least in the first reaction, are not happy because I think Bill really did a very good job. He came in replacing Steve Cangelosi, and I think he did a pretty bang up job in the 3 years he was calling games. So yeah, it comes as a surprise. But Chips, what are your thoughts on this news that kind of came out of left field today?
I can't stop laughing because this is gonna be the this is gonna be the funnest. And listen, respect to Bill Spalding. I think Bill Spalding was insanely talented. Like he was really good for the Devils, and anytime like when they were versus the Rangers, because I would always everybody always watches back when they versus the Rangers in the 2023 playoffs, Game 7, whatever it is. I always try to find the Devils broadcasting, like for the Devils goals, because I want to listen to them. I don't want to listen to
Of
ESPNs
course.
and everything like that because. Bill Spalding, Ken Danico, they have talent. Other teams, they don't gotta like them. They
Yeah.
don't. I don't care what they say, but like we all know, they got talent.
Yeah.
And Bill was very, very good. And I've met Bill Spalding multiple times at games and everything like that, and he's a really nice guy.
Yeah.
He's a very chill guy. I don't know why they would do what they did, um, but I will say this though: for people hating on it, if you like crash outs and everything, I'm not saying you're gonna see it live, but if you like
Probably
crash
not.
outs and everything,
Hmm.
this is gonna be one of the funnest seasons in Devils history. I'm not saying we're gonna see it live, but I will say though, like you just got to look up Don LaGreca on YouTube. Um,
Yeah.
see what he does in the Michael K show. And listen, I've always watched the Michael K show um, during COVID and everything like that,
Yeah.
and during the summer times. I would always watch it. Like I know how it always is. And listen, he did the Rangers broadcast, but he grew up a Devils fan. He has a Devils tattoo on him.
I was going
Um,
to bring that up. Yeah, he does.
so I say because same thing what happened with Steve Cangelosi when he left and Bill Spalding took over, and everyone was disappointed.
Yeah.
Nothing that Bill did to like take his job or anything like that, but also when Erica Walkner left, and then
There's another
Rachel
one.
took over, it was like the same thing. But now Rachel Herzog's growing on me and growing on everybody else. So I say
Yeah.
we got to give it a chance,
Sure.
especially like the first game preseason. I'm like you don't know how excited I am because I think this is going to be a damn fun, good duo between him and Ken Danico.
Yeah.
It's going to be something. I'm I'm really excited about it. Um, and I know like Michael Kay and everyone like they're all tweeting about it. They're all
Yeah.
hyped about it too. Just the crew that they've had on ESPN and the Michael Kay show and everything like that. Um, and he's like I said, lifelong Devils fan. So passionate about his team. So I can't wait to see how passionate he is like reacting to these goals and everything. Like
Hmm.
if it's a playoff game, um like if it was Nemeth scoring that double OT goal against Carolina, or
Yeah.
you know Eric Hollis making it 3-0 against the Rangers in Game 7 or whatever it is.
Hmm.
So I'm really excited. Best wishes to Bill. Um, but because that came out of nowhere, I thought honestly he was going to be the Devils play-by-play announcer for probably the next 10 years because it seemed like
Right.
this had it in him. Yeah, I think he's going to go on a run like Steve Cangelosi, but
Yeah.
I'm really excited about this though and seeing what he can do with Ken Danko.
Yeah, and look, I think Don LaGreca has paid his dues to get to this point. Like I said, he did radio for so long, doing the play-by-play. Even speaking to some Ranger fans who would listen to Don LaGreca, they really like him. I know that there aren't a ton of clips of him on radio that people can find. I posted one earlier today, which I thought was my personal favorite. But yeah, I think that I think it's more still just a shock that Bill's gone. Now, there's going to be speculation. It is interesting how we went from Bill and Erica 2 years ago to now Bill and Erica are out the door. and now we have Rachel and Don, which again, Rachel, I think, did a really solid job in her first year, and I'm sure she'll be even better going into next year. So next year it'll be Rachel Herzog doing the pre and post game. You'll have Bryce Salvador still doing his thing, and then you'll have Don LaGreca doing play by play with Ken Danico. Really, as Chips mentioned, really fun duo. When you think about personality wise, that's a really fun duo, and I'm excited to see what Don LaGreca can bring. And I agree with Chips that you got to give him an opportunity to show what he can do before you really start making your full assumptions as to whether or not this was a good hire. And again, wishing Bill Spalding all the best. I also met him numerous times. Fantastic human being. Fantastic human being. Super nice. And he's still incredibly talented. He's still going to be doing the Olympics for the Winter Olympics coming up next February. He still does a bunch of stuff on ESPN for college football. He does a lot of different things. So it's not like he's completely out of a job. He's going to be fine, but it is unfortunate we won't get to see him calling Devils games moving forward. So yeah, Don LaGreca, he's your new play-by-play voice for the New Jersey Devils on MSG, and let's see how it all goes down in year one. But on that note, that's going to do it for us on this episode of the Devil's State of Mind podcast. But Chips, before I let you go, because I do this with all of my guests, I like to roll out the red carpet and let the folks at home know where they can check you out on social and everything you got going on. So the floor is yours, my friend.
Yeah, I'm just gonna make it short. Just NHLChips on Instagram. Um, you know, like Neil said in the beginning, um, I was once a full NHL account, but I've always been a Devils fan. You know, and I, the team just got. I'm not saying no bandwagon thing. But once the team got better and everything, I wanted to keep making more posts about them. I've always been a Devils fan.
Yeah.
I wanted to keep making posts about them because I just found a lot of fun in it. I don't want to go out there and make posts about like Stuart Skinner or something like that. But I'm like I'm that's example. You know what I mean?
Uh,
Um, and I'd rather want to talk about Jacob Markstrom, Nico Dawes, Jake Allen, Jacob Malik in Europe. Like, because
Arsenio Gritzuk. Because if anybody's a bigger,
yo,
you
that's
guys
my
know I'm a
friend.
huge Gritzuk fan. You guys know I've written articles about him. But if there's anyone that's a bigger fan than I am of Gritzuk, it's definitely Chips for sure. I think. Don't you even have a jersey of his already?
I do. I have a Scott jersey of him, Russian jersey.
He has a Russian jersey, which is insane. So, be real. I'm sure he'll be super excited when Gritzuk comes over next month and gets ready for training camp, which will be definitely a lot of fun. And maybe the Devils will look even more different by the time we get to that September 1st and really when training camp gets underway. But Chips, thank you so much for coming on, man. Really do appreciate it, and we'll definitely have you on the podcast again down the road. But thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it, man.
Thank you for having me, Neil. This was 48 minutes. This is a lot of fun. Talking Devils with someone for this long. So I had a lot of fun. Thank you for having me.
Of course, man.